All right. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Claude Skills today. I've been using and experimenting with these a little bit more, and I figured it'd be helpful for maybe other folks to get a sense of what they can do and how I've gone about building them and actually see some of them in action. And so the first thing that I've sort of chosen to do with them is to actually just have them build graphics for a landing page that you might be working on for some product. And there's a specific type of graphic that I'm after, and there's different variations to that graphic as well. So maybe, for example, I want something that's going to be static, right? It's not going to move. There's no animations in it. But at the same time, maybe there is also a graphic that I'd like that is animated. And there's maybe some sort of knobs I want to turn on that. Maybe I want it to actually loop. Maybe I just want it to play based upon whatever the user is doing as they're interacting with that particular page. And I like a particular style to them. And you can see these, for example, through, some websites, that you might commonly come across, right? Some of these are done in different ways. I've chosen to do these in a way that's, say, code-based. Some of these could be a video that's sort of just looping. Some of them could be, other graphics tools that are being used to actually build these things. But if you sort of get a look at some of these, you can see, like, maybe I want to draw a little diagram here. In this case, they're done with a PNG, it looks like. But you can do this all just through code. And you can get some of these more clever visuals or graphics, as I'm referring to them here. And I'm doing this through Claude Skills. And Claude Code on its own, right? You could just send it a prompt and say, hey, build a graphic that does X, Y, Z. Now, I like to apply those constraints that I was talking about earlier on these so that I can get a little bit more of a tuned version of the graphic that I would like. And actually, I've seen and learned, I guess, through this process that you can actually sort of start to build a little bit of an interactive session with Claude through some of the instructions that you give the skill, such that it can actually ask questions back to you to be sure that it's going to get the right version of the output that it's after. So just to give you a little bit of sense of what I've actually gone and done, I've built this teeny tiny little app that's just previewing these different graphics that I'm building. And I'm just throwing wild stuff at this, right? So build a little graphic that sort of mimics or simulates or, illustrates anyway, the idea of like a file upload. Maybe I want to go and sort of show a visual of data streaming from left to right, one thing to the next thing. Maybe I want to sort of show that with different lines that are being drawn. You could sort of get a sense of what the output is then expected to look like. Now, you of course can customize the skill to embody the different things that you would like, a particular style. Maybe you actually want that to match whatever your product actually is already styled as. In this case, like some of the characteristics that I've chosen to style these graphics as is minimalist, using white space, things like that. And again, to have them be of different flavors based upon which sort of graphic I'm wanting to show. Maybe at the very top of a landing page, I want some more animation, whereas maybe at the bottom of it, where I'm just showing a list of features, I just want, something a little bit more visually pleasing than just an icon, right? And so I have some variation that I built into this particular skill to allow me to do that. So, let me open up this. And again, this is just a visual way for me to like inspect what is actually being, spat out on the other end. And what you see over here is the skill itself. So there's a bunch of detail in here. And I've tuned this over time using actually some of the methodology that Claude has provided in their docs. So one of the things that they, for example, share is that you should evaluate these in sort of the same way that you would, say, evaluate some particular agent, or some model that you're building, right? In the same way that you might build a model to, do customer support issues and respond to those through a chatbot of some sort, right? Like you are evaluating that and being sure that the quality of the response is what you want the actual customer to say C, right? So like in essence, these are the same, it's the same idea. And so what I've done is I've actually tossed a bunch of different prompts at it, like different tasks at it, and then sort of looked at whatever the output has been and then made some tweaks to the actual prompt itself, and done that through an iterative process such that I'm pretty reasonably getting the same result at each and every time, right? Without me having to go and tweak this or that, or sort of avoid some pitfall. So again, what you're looking at over here is you can see this is a super simple project. All I'm doing here is just purely testing the skill. It's a little bit of a sandbox for myself. And it's got the skill loaded. It's got a bunch of detail to it. And then over here, I'm actually playing with this. And so let me go ahead and actually just quickly clear this out. And let's give an example of what it might actually be able to do. So let's say, and what I've noticed while using skills is I find that it's easiest to be sure that they are used when you actually reference the file that the skill itself is actually contained within. They say that the model will invoke them on their own. I've seen that happen in a little bit of a spotty way. So I just want to be certain that I'm going to be able to hit that skill in order to do some task. So what I might say is like use, and I'll just reference the skill here, which I've named designing graphics, to build a visual that shows a mobile app that has a news feed. I don't know. Let's just sort of say something random in it, right? So I'm going to go ahead and fire that away. Again, I reference the skill to be sure it's going to go and follow some of those instructions. It'll go and think that through. What I've done inside of the skill, this is something unique that I found that you may have seen Claude Code on your own start to do a little bit more often, is it asks question backs of the user, which is particularly helpful, right? Because you might, if you aren't able to do that, it's going to have to sort of make a bunch of decisions on its own, when those decisions may not be the ones that you actually want to have Claude actually take or make on your behalf. So in this case, what I've done is there's a particular tool that you can reference inside of your skill, which is called AskUserQuestion. So I've made this a little bit back and forth, a little bit interactive with the user. So the first question I'm asking is, hey, like, do I want this to be a static or an animated graphic? Let's do an animated graphic. Newsfeed might be a little bit interesting there. And again, static, has a particular use case for myself. A animated one has a little bit of use case for itself. And then secondarily, I've actually added some other detail to this, and I'm saying, clarify whether or not this is going to be an automatic animation or something that's interactive. So automatic being that it's going to autoplay and then loop. And on the other hand, interactive one might be like, you can actually put a graphic on screen, and then when you hover over that graphic, something happens. So, again, a little bit of variation in what exactly I'm going to have this particular output look like that I've built into the skill itself. So in this case, let's do automatic. And then it's actually going to also suggest a couple different concepts. So it's going to think a little bit on my behalf. I'm going to take a look at what it actually is going to come out and say, okay, let's take a look at this. It says infinite scroll feed, new items loading from top, a live updating feed. Let's go and do an infinite scroll feed. This is for illustration purposes. And this particular technique where I'm actually telling it to ask the user question, use that particular tool, has been one thing that I'm probably going to be using a whole bunch more of, because it helps guide, the model down the right path and provides a little bit more of a back and forth. I personally sort of struggle a little bit with just sort of having the model, make all decisions. I want to have a little bit more control over that. And so let's go ahead and actually just say, hey, you're going to make all these edits just so we can have it spit out the other end. I'm going to, once that finishes, I'll have to go and reset this little app over here because I have it sort of working in a particular way where it needs to restart in order to register the new graphic. And so this is like one step of what I feel like will become a little bit of a more grandiose plan that I have for this, where I can then tie a bunch of skills together that can be referenced through a sub-agent. And that sub-agent might be my graphic designer of sorts, right? And so I can reference and say, hey, graphic designer, I need to go and have this, that, and the next thing happen. One of those skills that graphic designer could reach to is, this particular skill. And so cool. Looks like that went ahead and finished. I'm going to go over here. I'm just going to restart server, and the news feed animation now has appeared here. And so this is now a component that I could just quickly drop into, the landing page that I'm building, such that I can sort of have a little bit more interactivity, motion, animation built into it, make it a little bit more exciting than sort of just the flat, maybe sometimes visual, but maybe sometimes tense text, sort of look and feel to things. This could, again, just complement any of the visual or the textual content that you're putting on your landing page, or just any sort of marketing oriented thing overall. So this is a look that it spits out, and you can see that, this would be nice to sort of put maybe a little bit of a commentary here to the left or right, which sort of explains maybe this app's newsfeed. Again, you can create all different types of these things. You can sort of see how the, in this particular one, this is an interactive version. And so I need to hover over this in order to actually have it, do something or animate on the actual screen. And this one, for example, is just purely a static. So again, you can sort of see the different variations, but some of the styling is consistent. So that's a little bit of a quick demo on using skills inside of Claude Code to, do something particularly useful. I'll build a bunch of these. And again, sort of like I was talking about, I can more or less inject these skills into a agent who has access to these, who then can sort of make decisions based upon what I'm asking it to do to ultimately produce the asset that I'm trying to ultimately generate. So yeah, skills are a ton of fun.